sport was definitely a little bit of a sanctuary for me because it was, everything that was in my control. It really gave me a safe space to be me. Even outside of a pride round, it's always going to be something that I'm going to advocate for. One of my other teammates had actually bought me that patch that I have on my white jersey. Steph Conlon asked me about it, and we had this huge chat about my queer identity, what it means to me.
Welcome back to the Pride and Puck podcast. This is episode number 31. I'm your host, Andrew McDougall. Thank you for tuning in once again. I say this every single month when I'm jumping on with a new guest. Thank you for subscribing, for hitting the like, hitting the follow on all the platforms. You can find us at Pride Puck Podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube. That's the handle over there on YouTube, and also on Facebook, Instagram, Threads. We are on X, but not a lot. Pride Puck Podcast as well over on those platforms as well. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone about the podcast so we can spread the word and get all these queer hockey stories out there to a greater audience. So episode 31, we hit the 30 mark last month, and now we're into 31 today. And I think people are going to enjoy this one. We're returning back to Australia. So as people know, that I'm based in Australia, and this podcast is based in Australia. So we're returning to Australia. A bit of a superstar, I think, is jumping on the podcast for this episode. I'll bring them on now. Isabela Raymundo, thank you for joining the Pride and Puck podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. High praise there. God.
Well, if people don't know, Bella plays for the Melbourne Ice and in the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League, and is the current champion of the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League as well. So how does it feel to be known as the champion of the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League?
Oh, when you put it like that, so it makes me sound, like I'm the best ice hockey player ever. But nah, it's really exciting always to come into a season coming off such a high. Obviously, we want to go again this season, so fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. You should be proud because it's the elite women's league here in Australia, and people know that I love the league and I'm sort of heavily involved in it. So to have you on, it's really, really cool. And it's great to have someone on, I suppose, that I've got a connection to already. I've sort of known you for a little while and all that sort of stuff. And we're both Western suburbs born and bred people as well here in Melbourne. Big Western Bulldogs fans as well. So we've got that connection too.
100%.
Growing up, you were always a sports person, and it's something that I can relate to as well. Just growing up, always being involved in sport. Do you remember the first sport? Because I'm knowing a little bit of your history. Ice hockey wasn't the first sport. Do you remember the first sport you sort of fell in love with?
First sport that I sort of fell in love with would have been netball, I reckon. Played it through primary school, kind of just at school, and then wanted to get into it outside of school, but I'm the youngest of three, so my two older siblings, their sport kind of took up a lot of time, and I was always at their sporting games, their sporting events, so never really got the opportunity to. So I would say, yeah, definitely netball is the first sport that I fell in love with.
And also, it's something that you grew up with, and also even today. You said that you're heavily involved in community as well. How has that helped you along your journey through sport?
Oh, it's been absolutely huge. I think being involved in the sporting community is obviously great, and I'm so grateful to have such a supportive group of people around me at all times, but also just at school, when I was in high school, when I was at uni, when I'm at uni. It's been so good just to know that there's support and like-minded people around me, sort of just to help propel myself, knowing that there are people backing me and people who are going to support me and challenge me along every step.
And your first foray into hockey, or I suppose a form of hockey, we'll get onto the ice hockey later on, was inline.
Yeah.
How did you find inline? Like, how did it come about that you decided that this was one of the sports that you wanted to pursue as a young age?
Oh, I don't know that it was. Look, I did choose it in the end, but the story of me kind of getting into inline is my older sister played inline before me, and again, I was always at the games after school on the weekends, always going to her sporting events, and I would always be skating around the rink in my inline skates, and the coach at our local rink in Sunshine was always like, why don't you hop on and play? Like, we're short of numbers, hop on the rink. It's not going to hurt. If you don't like it, then I'll stop asking. And I would always say, no, 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 I don't want to. And then one day they really needed someone to fill in, otherwise the game wasn't going to go ahead. And I was like, fine, I'll do it, I guess. And kind of, never looked back, to be honest. I loved every bit of it, even though I definitely did not admit it at the time to the coach or my dad who was with us. Definitely did not admit it, but I absolutely loved every second of it, and never looked back.
Was the older sister sort of looking you going, oh, now my younger sister's involved, like, you know, the bit of the older sister and the younger sister, you can sort of get that, what's the word I'm trying to look for here, where as the older sister gets older and the younger sister maybe is a little bit daggy. Was there any of that sort of stuff?
Definitely. There was definitely a little bit of competition. I'm a super competitive person. Like, anything, I will make a competition. But I think it was definitely an unsaid sort of thing, at least on my end. Her and I are the same when it comes to competition. But yeah, she was always really, really, really supportive of me getting into hockey. And she would tell everyone that I would be or grow up to be a gun, better than her. And I never believed it because I kind of always, she's going to love that I'm going to say this. I always idolized her. She was kind of, what I aspired to be. I wanted to work as hard as her. I wanted to get as far as she did. But yeah.
Once you're playing inline hockey, the both of you, was the house set up? Was there any sort of setup with goals and things like that? Were the parents getting everything set up in the backyard or anything like that, shooting pucks and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my parents definitely told my sister, because my sister used to play all sorts of sports growing up, and hockey was kind of the one that stuck. They were like, if you're going to commit, you really got to commit to the bit, because it's not cheap in the slightest, considering the gear. But yeah, we ended up getting a net, a shooting net in our backyard. One of the old rinks, I think it might have been Moe, they were giving away just like the tiles that they had at the rink, the old tiles, because they were going to get new ones. So we bought a heap of them and put them out in the backyard. And for years, it was those tiles that were just sprawled along our backyard. And I'd chuck on the skates and I'd skate around, shoot pucks. Dad made me like a little slide board so I could handle the pucks a little bit better. It got a little bit tricky, obviously, in the winter when it rained. So we ended up getting rid of the tiles, unfortunately for me, because I loved it. But yeah, Dad made me a little slide board so I could shoot, I could pass to myself. And yeah, I loved it. I would be out there every single day after school.
So it's fair to say that your family is well and truly a hockey family.
Oh, yeah. They are well and truly just like supporters in everything that I've done. Like, you will absolutely catch them at every single one of my games, whether it's here or interstate. They're always around.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Also with inline, you played nationals and worlds.
Yeah.
Can you just talk us through that? Because obviously not everyone gets to either play in national tournaments or world championships and things like that. Can you just talk us through what that meant to you, and obviously, and I suppose the process of getting there? You did mention that you're quite competitive, and obviously you've got that internal drive to be the best that you can be. What was it like to actually get to nationals and worlds at Inline?
Oh, it was huge. I remember, like, in my first year trying out for, I think it would have been the under 11s team, maybe even junior women's, tried out for the Vic team. And I actually didn't make it my first year. I remember being absolutely heartbroken. Like, you could not get me out of bed. I was in shambles. Because that was kind of like, at that age, that was do or die for me. But they ended up putting together like a second Vic team. We actually went under the guise of being like a Tasmanian team, but we were just another Victorian team. And so I played nationals that year for under 11s with a couple of the boys, and I loved it. It was a great opportunity. Came back the next year, did a heap of training, like really put myself to it. And I was quite young, really put myself to it. Tried out again, missed out again, unfortunately. And then I think that year someone came out with injury, which opened the door for me, and played for Victoria that year for under 11s. And I grabbed that opportunity. I was like, this is my way in, and this is how I'm going to do, and do what I want and get further. And I remember being so excited and nervous kind of getting to that level, because even some of the boys who are my age who play in the AIHL and the boys that I grew up playing with, it was super competitive with them, and they'd been around for years. So to be a part of it was super special. And then, I think in that first year, I got picked to play in the Oceania tournament, which was Australia versus New Zealand, which was luckily down here in Melbourne. And I remember being so stoked. I was like, how good that I've kind of, had this opportunity, had this door open for me, and then been able to take the next step. I was so excited, and I was just almost starstruck by like the talent that I got to play with. Likes of Imogen Perry, who plays for Brisbane, was the goalie that year for us. And I was like, just the talent on that team was incredible to me. And then I came back the next year and I kept playing for Vic. Went to another World Champions in 2018, I believe. But yeah, super special. Again, I watched my sister do it and I was like, that's what I want to do. And then I got there and I was like, this is exactly everything I pictured it to be.
And how different is Inline for those who might not have played it? They might have just gone straight into playing ice hockey. How different is Inline compared to ice hockey?
Obviously, like, you've got 4-on-4 for Inline as opposed to the 5-on-5 that we have on the ice. No offsides. And it's more of a really like kind of free flowing game, I found. It's, you've got more space to work with. You've got less people to kind of go around and watch out for. A lot more free flowing. And a lot, not that ice hockey is rigid in its structures, but a lot less structured, at least when I was playing. And yeah, ice hockey, you've got your structures. You can go a little bit further in terms of the levels that you can play at with ice hockey, which is why I made the transition over when I did, because I was like, I want to go even further than I was before.
And through that time as well, like you're obviously you're still really young now. you've achieved a lot. I think you're 22 years old, if I've got that correct.
Yeah.
And you did mention to me, like through high school, you knew that you were queer and you identify as pansexual. And you said that it was quite funny. It was something that really touched with me as well. You said you were in a lot of like hetero relationships and you felt like an imposter.
Yeah.
Through that time of playing inline and things like that, did your identity, did it hold you back or did it cause any sort of issues like through that time of finding sport as well? Or was that sort of like a separate thing away from the sport, or was sport a bit of a sanctuary for you?
Sport was definitely a little bit of a sanctuary for me because it was, everything that was in my control. Like I knew exactly what I was getting into when I got on the rink. I knew exactly what I needed to do and I knew exactly who I needed to be in that moment. I just needed to be the best hockey player that I could be in that moment on that day. And I think sport definitely kind of played into it because I was like, I always had this notion, and I unfortunately just how kind of the world works. Like sport is such an inherently masculine thing, so I was always like really tomboyish, and you have this obviously thing when you grow up and you're a girl or you're a boy, and boys play sports, and if you're a girl playing sports then you're a tomboy, and there's something not quite right. So that definitely played into it. But yeah, I always had sport as a sanctuary, and it definitely is still a sanctuary for me now.
And then you transition like through all this time as well. You obviously your sister, your older sister, played. We mentioned it before. Played for Melbourne Ice women's in the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League. Then you started to transition to full time ice hockey as well. Did I'm only guessing here just because I sort of know the environment of the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League a little bit. In terms of your identity and labeling yourself, because you did mention that you sort of pushed it down for so long. Did ice hockey and the Melbourne Ice women's in particular really help you in that area in terms of your identity?
Yeah, 100%. It really gave me a safe space to be me. I almost felt freer coming into that environment. I feel like a lot of I say a lot, like a majority of the athletes who are playing in the Australian Women's League are very, very open about themselves, whether they're, hetero, they're queer, they are just purely themselves. And I feel like I definitely stepped into that environment. It was just judgment free. You were just you. Everybody was having fun. Everybody embraced you with open arms, whether you were trying to find yourself or you were having troubles with your identity. But it definitely gave me a safe space. And I obviously watched, a couple of my teammates speak so openly about being in queer relationships that I was like, hey, maybe it isn't so left field for you to also be feeling like this, for you wanting to, explore this side of yourself. You don't have to push that down anymore. And, if you want to explore it, if you want to talk to someone about it, this is kind of the space to do it. There was everybody who I've ever played with on the Melbourne Ice since I was 15, 16 has been so undeniably supportive.
It's really powerful, isn't it? When just listening to you talk then, and obviously growing up as a teenager and you're trying to find your place, to find it in, I suppose, of all sports as well, when you talk about sport being that masculine, and people look at ice hockey and they see the rough and the tumble and all those sorts of things. And it must have been really powerful for you to find it in that space.
Oh, it 100% was. I always kind of felt that there was something in me that wasn't quite, connecting, I suppose. There was always like a part of me that I was still needing to figure out, like kind of iron out, understand it for myself. And you said it perfectly, like growing up as a teenager, or you're already trying to form your self-identity, outside with your friends, sport, who you are as a person, let alone trying to figure out, your queer identity. It was, yeah, being in that environment was so, so powerful, which is why now I'm so passionate about creating safe spaces in sport and creating that visibility, because I know if I had that as a teenager, if I had that a lot earlier on, that I would have been more confident in myself and more empowered to explore that side of myself.
Do you find yourself, and we're going to talk about the Pride game, the Pride event that the Melbourne Ice held, the season just gone in the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League a little bit later on. But I was just thinking then, even though you are so young in age and you've still got a lot of hockey ahead of you, going through this journey, and it's just something I was just thinking about as you were talking, going through this journey of finding a safe space to be yourself and figuring out your identity and things like that. Is it important for you now when you have new players come through the system at Melbourne Ice to sort of put your arm around them and sort of show them and be that visible person now?
Yeah, 100%. Whether it's, it's not just being a queer athlete. Of course, that is a huge part of why I want to be a safe space for the up and coming, but also just like, it's a really daunting environment to come into as a 12, 13, 14-year-old. I remember being so scared going into that, being so young. So being able to, be a safe space and embrace people with open arms is so important to me in a very general sense, and also in that queer sense as well. And it's not just, the athletes who are coming through the door, not just the young girls who are wanting to play in the AWIHL, but also just like people who want to come along and watch hockey, knowing that there are people on the ice, knowing that there are people in that community who advocate so hard for this kind of thing. I feel like attracts, a safe space for people who want to watch and just want to be a part of something with people who are like-minded, with people who are going to support them in a community that is, going to be open for that kind of thing.
It's something with women's sport, I think across the board, that I find when I go to women's sport, it's just a totally different environment. And I find that with the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League compared to the Australian Ice Hockey League with the men's, there's just a totally different sort of culture and fan experience. So creating those spaces is super, super important. And I think the league and people like yourself have done a great job of trying to create that culture for the fan experience. You were just talking about how it's daunting to come into a locker room of the Melbourne Ice women's or any ice hockey team, I suppose. When you first walked in to the Melbourne Ice women's locker room, or you're trying out for the team, did you walk away thinking, I can do this, or I can make this? Or did you walk away thinking, oh my God, what have I got myself into?
I definitely walked out of my first tryout being like, oh, I'm not cut out for this. Just like, the time that I tried out, you still had the likes of Shona Green, Nicole Jones, kind of the people who've been and gone, and all the imports who were coming through the door. I was like, oh, this is so different. I was like, oh, like I've been knocked back a few pegs here. Like I've got to really, put in the work again to get to the level that I want to be at. But again, I've never been the one to shy away from that kind of stuff. That's the kind of thing that fuels me the most. But yeah, no, I definitely walked out of there being like, this is so different. This is what an elite sport environment feels like. And this is a kind of competition that is in this kind of environment.
Was there something that I suppose it might have just been the evolution of your journey from inline into ice hockey, but was there something that stood out in terms of, because some people would play inline for, I suppose, their entire career and not even think about ice hockey. They just love it that much. Was there something from ice hockey that like drew you to the sport to play ice hockey? It might have just been the fact that your sister was playing as well, but was there something that sort of stood out to you that drew you to ice hockey?
Oh, it was a massive case of FOMO. I won't lie. everybody, everybody again who I grew up playing with, all the boys that I grew up playing with, even the likes of Amani Pullen, who I played in line with, all transitioned over to ice, and I was like, "What's over there that I'm not getting over here?" But also just knowing, you've got the NHL, you've got the major leagues in America, you hear ice hockey and you hear, oh, that's a sport that you can get far with. I, obviously went to nationals, went to world championships, but that was kind of the ceiling of inline. I wanted a little bit more. It kind of got a little bit repetitive doing the same thing every single year. So I made the transition over to ice with the intention of wanting to get a little bit further, wanting to it wasn't something obviously entirely new. It was still hockey, but it was a new environment, a new challenge. And all of my friends, everybody who I grew up playing with moved over. So I was like, I suppose I'll go too.
Yeah, and Marnie Pullen's now become the big social media star as well as an awesome defender for the Melbourne Ice Women's. It's really taken off. Not only did you play and start up ice hockey and make that transition to inline, you've gotten very good at ice hockey, not only winning the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League, but also I think it was under 18s World Junior Championships. Talk us about that, because obviously it's probably a totally different environment from inline World Championships to playing ice hockey World Championships for Australia.
Yeah, 100%. It was just, I think about that experience and I still pinch myself that I got to do that. It was super special to be able to pull on the green and gold, inline or ice, but I don't know, it meant a little bit more to me to pull on the green and gold for ice hockey, really. It was super challenging, but also super fun. Obviously got to meet girls from interstate who were playing, got to play with them, and a lot of them I'm still really good friends with. But yeah, it is an honor every single time I think about it, even to this day, because that was even 2019 that I went, and then obviously COVID happened and shut all that down. But I still pinch myself every single time I think about it now.
And the programs too, the women's and the junior programs on the women's side of things are just going from strength to strength in terms of national teams. Since you were playing under 18s, it's continued to increase and increase. Just talking about COVID, how difficult was that for you? Because you just made the Melbourne Ice women's team, and then COVID had hit. How difficult was that for you to work through COVID as a new player to, I suppose, ice hockey in the Melbourne Ice women's program, getting selected, and then you get COVID hits?
Yeah, I think it was so hard to lose the sport overall, but also knowing that I didn't have the AW to look forward to the next summer was really, really hard. Obviously, I said before that, sport's always been a sanctuary for me. So to not kind of have that in my back pocket was really hard and just made me even more grateful to be able to play nowadays. I think the biggest thing for me, at least, was I unfortunately missed out on my final year for the under 18s national women's team. And that was really a punch in the gut. Like, I, again, still think about it now and get emotional about it. Like, I always kind of wish that I had that last year to go. But yeah, no, it was super hard to lose that.
Yeah, I could imagine, especially not being able to, just the simple things of getting out on the ice and having a skate through those times as well, and just to sort of keep the skills up and the fitness and things like that,
Yeah.
would have been really, really difficult. But you did make the team prior to COVID. You got selected. Can you talk us through that, getting selected for the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League? As we mentioned earlier, it's the elite women's league here in Australia. A lot of quality players play in the league, and the imports that come over now, that's continuing to get better and better as well. Talk us through that, finally making the team. Was there a sit down with the coach? Was it just your name was on a piece of paper on the wall and saying, you're in? Or how did it work?
It was all a bit of a blur, if I'm being honest. It was because I had tried out the previous 2 seasons and just missed out. I was still training with the Melbourne Ice. I was lucky enough that Micah Swong, who's the current national women's coach, gave me that opportunity to still step on the ice and, you know, develop myself to make the playing squad. But yeah, I had a really good feeling about it because I think in that year, I think my rookie year was 2018, 19, I think. And in 2018, I've kind of gone strength to strength, and I was like, I'm feeling really good here. I'm on a roll. I've got the momentum. I'd gone to the under 18s training camps. I'd done all the right things in the previous seasons training with those girls. And then, yeah, I think it was actually an email saying that I had made the team, and I was absolutely elated. I was over the moon that I could finally, you know, be in and amongst it. Obviously, I was still around the girls training, but I think it's different when you know that you're on the playing squad, you're competing for a spot, there's an opportunity to get on the ice and play at that elite level.
And number 71. Is there a special meaning to number 71? Because if I've got my things correct, your sister was number 71 as well. Is that correct? Is there a special link to 71?
Not well now for me, yes. So my sister, when she played, she was number 71, and then she hung up the skates, if you will, the season before my rookie season, because at that point she was playing footy and was really invested in that. She had just gotten picked to play in the VFLW. So she was like, that's the route that I'm going to go. So she, hung up the skates. The next year they presented me with that jersey with, you know, her name, obviously our name on the back. And yeah, I've been wearing it ever since. And I never really had an attachment, I'll be honest, to it in the first couple of years. But kind of now as time has gone on, I think it's super special to be able to, you know, have that handed down to me. We call it the sisterhood of the traveling jersey. So that's obviously been passed down. And when I had first received the number 71 jersey, I was always like, you know what, when we get new jerseys, I'm going to pick a different number because 71 is not my number and I've got absolutely no attachment to it. And then last season and this season we got the new jerseys. We obviously got new blues last season, and then this season we're getting new whites, and we got the opportunity to have our numbers changed, and I was like, nah. I'm much too attached to 71 now. It's got too much meaning to me now to let go.
No, it's super cool. It's super cool. There's a bit of family history within the Melbourne Ice now. It's awesome, and you're going to be wearing 71 for a long time to come. So it's really cool. And who knows who else along the lines with the same last name could don the 71? Who knows?
Who knows?
It's really cool. Just talking about last season, you just mentioned there with the jerseys, etc. The Melbourne Ice hosted the first Pride game, and you were talking to me prior to coming on about visibility and education and not being educated, just finding your way to the label of pansexual. How important, or how much? I suppose the first one is, how much did it mean to you to have the Melbourne Ice have the Pride game last season?
Oh, it was huge. It was absolutely huge. And I am so honoured and feel really privileged to have been a part of that. We obviously, got to don those jerseys that were made for us by Cridget, I believe. I could have that totally wrong. But yeah, no, it was super special. And even outside of a Pride round, it's always going to be something that I'm going to advocate for. Obviously, on my own white jersey, I had the Pride flag ironed on at the bottom with a little patch. But yeah, it was super special. And, we had the support of Proud to Play and Cade Matthews, who came in, educated us about, the queer community and the queer sporting community. And it was, everything that I hoped that it would be, truly.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was really glad that I was there for the day as well. And it's great to have people like Kate and Proud to Play involved. And because I've always said, and it's across the Australian Ice Hockey League or any league, if they're doing Pride Nights, you need to do the proper groundwork and the grassroots stuff and the education. That's the most important. Is you can slap on rainbows and things on jerseys and sell scarves and whatever, but if you're not doing the proper stuff, that's what needs to be the focus, the education through the locker rooms, etc. And you did mention that you talked to a teammate in the season prior about approaching the committee to host a Pride game. Can you just talk us through that as well? Because obviously it meant a lot to you as well to sit down and talk to someone outside your close circle as well, and actually be heard.
Yeah, 100%. So funnily enough, the season prior, I think we were in Brisbane on a road trip, and we had a little bit of time to kill, and we were literally just sitting having lunch. I don't even know how the conversation came about, to be honest. I think one of my other teammates had actually bought me that patch that I have on my white jersey, and Steph Conlon asked me about it, and we had this huge chat about my queer identity, what it means to me, what being pansexual means, not just to me, but in a very general sense as well. And yeah, as you said, it was a kind of first time that anyone outside of my sort of support circle had asked me anything about it. And I remember being so happy, and like a weight had been lifted off my chest, being able to, spread the knowledge. And she was incredible about it. Me and my family call her Mama Shark, and that's exactly what she was in that moment. She, was like, I want to make sure that I'm across it. You're not going to be able to tell me everything, and I know that, but at least, this is a starting point, and I at least can get a perspective from someone that I know. And she was actually the one who said to me, how would you feel about approaching the committee to do a Pride game next season? And I was like, I would absolutely love that, because it had been something that I was thinking about the seasons prior being like, why do we not have a pride round? Every other women's sporting codes, they all have pride rounds. I'm pretty sure the men do. I think the Mustangs hold a pride round, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So why aren't we, hosting a pride round for ourselves? And I didn't know how by myself I was going to approach our committee to do that. Obviously, it's really daunting to ask your committee to have this entire round for, hosting a pride event. But yeah, she was like, I will back you 100%. You tell me exactly what you need. You tell me like how you want to approach it, what you need, what you want out of it, and I will back you 100%. And I was like, you know what? After this weekend, let me sit and think about it. Let's have a chat at a later date. And then I think the season just got to us, to be honest. We kind of flew through that season, got to the end, and I was like, never actually spoke to the committee about doing a pride round. And then we had the season following, so the season just passed, we had our Players' Day in our pre-season, and Nancy, who at the time I believe was our vice president, was like, we're looking to host a pride round this season. And my face, I don't know whether it was internal or external, but I just lit up. I'm pretty sure it was external because I can't hide my facial expressions ever. It was definitely external. I just lit up, and I approached Nancy and I was like, if there's anything that I can do to be a part of it, to advertise it, I want to do it. Tell me and I will do it. And I spoke to Jordan, who is at the time was our equipment manager, but now is our team manager. Remember speaking to Jordan about it, being like, get me involved. Whatever it is, whatever you can find out, get me involved because I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. It's when Cade actually mentioned it to me prior to it sort of all coming to bear and getting announced and that, and he sort of sent me a message and said, this is what's coming up. And I said, that's really cool. And even Cade sort of said, and we sort of spoke to each other like, why is it taking so long? But now, like, it's weird though. Like when I talk to you now tonight and you talk about the culture that you walked into and how there was people that were visibly talking about their career identity, etc. Maybe it was one of those things where the women's league and the women's teams were so far advanced that it was just like that's just how it was, and maybe they just didn't think that a pride game was on the agenda. But there's also that flip side that you mentioned earlier of for the fans as well. So having a pride game and getting people who might not have attended hockey, they might have gone to that pride game for their very first time.
Yeah, 100%. I think I said it before that, like, because sport is so inherently a masculine thing, that as a female or a non-binary athlete playing sport, no one really bats an eye if you're queer. Like, I don't think that I ever had to like formally come out. I think I just said, I think I'm pansexual, and nobody really batted an eye. Everyone's kind of like, oh, cool. But I do think that it is still important that we have the visibility, even if female sports are a safe space. I think because sports are so masculine that we kind of think about it. But yeah,
with the AW as well, obviously the pride game was held last season. One of the great things about the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League is the fact that how welcoming the league is to trans and gender diverse people. As a player who plays in the league, how special is that? And obviously you are a queer person as well. How special is it to play in a league that has trans and gender diverse people actively playing on the rosters and heavily involved in the league?
It's huge. It's so, I'm going to be so repetitive with this, but it is so important to have that visibility. Visibility is everything when it comes to sports. I have been involved in, sporting communities where, certain things were visible and certain things were not. Certain athletes who had certain gender identities were celebrated, and, other queer, whether that be like sexually queer or gender queer, weren't celebrated, which is so hard to watch, especially when it's, people who I hold very near and dear to my heart. And I think that is, again, another reason why I'm so hell-bent on making this so visible. But to have, gender diverse athletes having played and are playing in the league is super, super, super important. Again, it creates the safe space. It sends a message to any gender diverse athletes, any queer athletes that, hey, you can come here and you can play and you can be and you can enjoy the sport and you can play the sport that you love and still be you. You don't have to hide parts of you. You don't have to worry about, acting a certain way or being a certain way. There are already athletes who are like you playing in this sport, and they have been welcomed and they have been supported, and we will continue to welcome and we will continue to support these athletes. I remember playing, it would have been 2 seasons ago, when we won it, and then all of the teams, we obviously go out after, have a big celebration with all of the teams who have come down. And I remember talking to Archie, who used to play for Adelaide, the goalie for Adelaide. And I just remember saying to him, hey, I think it's super special that you're here, and I think it's super special that you're playing. And if there's anything that I can do to support you, even from afar, even from a different state, I'm happy to. And we had a really special moment where we kind of just bonded, and I was like, what can we do? Seriously, what can we do to make this space more welcoming? What can we do to, show that we are welcoming? And obviously it was a bit late in the night, so the conversation was had and kind of forgotten about at that point. But yeah, again, visibility will always, always be everything. And something that I will endeavor to always kind of advocate and strive for, because I think it's so important to send that message and make sure that everybody has a space in the sport where they can be and where they can do what they love.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what makes the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League so special, honestly. For people on and off the ice, just show up as you are, and you'll be loved and you'll be welcomed with open arms. And when you've got these trans and gender diverse people playing in the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League, and all this talk about sport and trans people, and they're playing in the AWIHL, and the sky hasn't fallen in, and everyone is out there playing the game that they love, and it's all good. So leading the way, the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League, in my opinion, in that space, creating that safe space and that welcoming space for people. It's really, really cool. It's really inspiring. And you're part of it. You're playing a massive role in that as well. One of the question I ask all of my guests when I have a guest on is, what is your proudest moment within queer hockey?
Ooh, that is a great question. I truly do think it's being a part of that Pride round and being an advocate. I think it's something that I will always be proud to be, especially being privy to, again, environments that maybe weren't so welcoming. We're kind of doing the right things in some areas and weren't so much in others. I think that is definitely my proudest thing, whether it makes an impact or not, whether it's an impact on one person or a whole group of people. it's still really, really important, and something that I, will always have a passion for, not just in sport, but in my everyday life. I want to be an advocate for people who either feel like they can't advocate for themselves or physically can't advocate for themselves. It's something that I will always want to do and will always be proud to do.
Being so big on visibility, I'm like that as well. With the bisexual community, visibility is huge, and the pansexual community exactly the same. And is there something that you do to stay visible out on the ice, and something that is there anything you can recommend to hockey players if they want to be that little bit visible out on the ice, as a queer hockey player? Might be tape on a stick or anything like that.
Yeah, 100%. So we've obviously got the pride tape that I have on the end of my stick that I haven't touched. I actually need to replace it. But having that at the end of your stick, it might seem like such a little thing, but it can make all of the difference. If someone can spot something from the stands, if someone can spot something from the camera, it makes such a huge difference. Again, if I had that when I was younger, I would have, been more comfortable in myself and been more comfortable to explore. Something that I do, or try to do at least, I've got a little pride ribbon that I've tied to my shorts. You can't actually see it, so it's more kind of just for me. You can kind of see it sometimes when it's dangling down. Or I'll wear ribbons in my hair to kind of, sometimes I'll wear the trans colours, sometimes I'll wear the pansexual flag colours. I've also got like a little pin on my backpack with my pronouns on it. So just like little things like that, being like, hey, this is who I am. I'm proud to be this person. And, that's not going to change. And it's not going to change the fact that I play this sport and my ability to play this sport. And you can do exactly the same.
Yeah, I think I've always been of the thought, and I've mentioned it on this podcast, is if I could impact just one person with the podcast, I think it's a job well done. So I think even if it's a little thing like a tape or a ribbon or anything like that, if it impacts one person, then I think that's a job well done for you as well. Outside of hockey, as we wrap up here, you're studying physiotherapy. Is that a way to stay involved in hockey post career?
Definitely. I don't think I could let go of the sport even if I tried. Yeah, no, it definitely is. I think I just want to be involved in sports and helping people, athletes, the general population, in a very general sense. The dream obviously is to stay within the hockey community. But yeah, definitely something that I want to keep doing.
I don't know if you've got a PWHL team or something like that. Can we see you as a head physio in Canada or something like that?
Fingers crossed. If anyone is listening, I graduated a year on 8 months. So if anyone happens to be listening that can get me there, that would be perfect. Because I think I've told anyone who's asked, like my ultimate career dream is to move to Canada and to, be involved in the PWHL as a head physio, or as a physio in general. I think that would be so cool. But yeah, if anyone is listening and happens to have connections, send them my way.
Yeah, well, Vancouver's just been announced. They're a new team, and maybe they're looking for some new staff. So you never know. The other thing I thought of too when I was thinking about this physiotherapy, do you have some of your teammates just sort of look over to you and say, "Hey, I'm feeling a little bit sore. Can you help me out?"
There's one person who I am going to name and shame, Michaela Pierce. I love her. She's my best friend. So she absolutely would not mind me saying this. But we'll be back in the hotel room. She'll be like, "Oh, I should have gotten a rub from Kelly before we left the rink." And then she'll look over to me being like, "I've got physio cream in my bag. Could you please help a girl out?" I'll always oblige. Like I'll do it anyway. But even something as small as like Steph Cochran our captain used to be a physio in another life. So sometimes she'll be like, "Hey, you know what you're doing. I trust you." When it comes to like when we do our warm-ups or when we're trying to figure out what to do for cool down or like whatever it might be, she'll be like, "I trust you. You seem like you know what you're doing."
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I was actually just speaking of your friendship with Michaela, and it's totally off topic, but I was really rapt till I was able to capture that footage from last season's grand final between you two out on the ice as well. Maybe I can try and overlay it on this YouTube for people to have a look at. It was really cool, really special.
Yeah. Oh, that was Any moment that is captured between Michaela and I will forever cherish. And when you posted that, I didn't even know you were filming when that was going down. I was in my own bubble, but yeah, when you posted that, I was like, that's really special. That's really, really special. It's in my Instagram.
No, it was really cool to capture. I love that sort of stuff. When this episode goes out, the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League will probably be a week away from kickstarting. Nerves, excitement. What are you feeling?
Oh, a little bit of everything at the moment. I think I'm just excited to be back, to be honest. We had a couple of months off and I just miss the structure of miss being around everybody, miss the competition. So yeah, it should be a really good year. I'm really excited.
And defending the crown. And there's another team from Melbourne as well that you would definitely want to beat that are coming in, expansion team coming into the competition. So it's all happening.
It is all happening.
As I say to people, like when people talk about the NHL off season or whatever, I always say you've got nothing on Australian ice hockey. The longest off seasons in the history of off seasons, Australian ice hockey.
It feels like an eternity, and then we'll get back and we're like, where did that time go? Between like what we finished up in March and we had our tryouts in end of July, start of August. Like that's a good couple months, but we're like, where did that time go? It's so long, yet I feel like I saw you yesterday. We're back here again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. November 8th, the season kicks off, the Australian Women's Ice Hockey League. Isabela Raymundo, thank you so much for jumping on the Pride and Puck podcast and having a chat about Inline, a bit about growing up, finding ice hockey, finding your pansexual identity and navigating that, and the pride game for the Melbourne Ice Women's, who continues to do good things on and off the ice. It's a big Australian Women's Ice Hockey League season, and I look forward to catching up with you at the rink as well. But thank you so much for jumping on for episode 31 and having a chat with me.
Oh, thank you for having me. Absolute privilege.
We are the Pride and Puck podcast. As I said, you can find us at Pride Puck Podcast on the socials. This is episode 31. I am Andrew McDougall. That is Bella Raymundo. Melbourne Ice, number 71. Check Bella out on the streams once the season kicks off. But until next month, that is it for us, and we'll speak to you then. Ciao.